Welcome to the Talk Sox podcast. I'm Alex, and this week I'm here with Caleb. What's going on?
How's it going, guys? Happy to be on the show this week, and we're going to have some good stuff to talk about tonight.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you right off the rip here, Caleb, for stepping up and pinch hitting for us today. Maddie and Adam are both out, and Caleb had reached out a little bit ago asking to kind of help with some stuff, and he was the first person I reached out to, and I'm excited he said, yeah, we're going to talk about some Red Sox here in just a second.
Sure. Appreciate Caleb, the chance to be here, man.
Absolutely. Before we get into that, how long ballpark do you think that you've been with Talk Sox? I was talking to some people earlier, and I couldn't remember. I know you've been here for a while.
Yeah, I kind of started out here and there back in September was my first article, and then kind of picked up a little bit more steam kind of beginning of the year. I ended up actually doing an internship with Talk Sox, so helped me finish out my degree and trying to figure out how much of a commitment I want to go down this road for broadcasting. And this is a nice little way for me to try it out without,
absolutely
too much of a relocation, if you will. So
absolutely. Well, we're stoked that you're here. And I read everything that comes across the site, and I always enjoy your pieces. And so I'm stoked
same for you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That does mean a lot. So one thing that we were talking about right before we started recording was late last week, the Alex Bregman news kind of came out that we're looking maybe an injury return after the All-Star break, but OB and Loomer, OB and Loomer on the broadcast tonight, which we're recording right after the conclusion of the first game of the Red series. We're talking that Bregman had a really good workout today. I know he's been taking BP, he's done fielding, he's been taking grounders, and he thinks he might return before the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, may he return as soon as is humanly possible, right? I think that would be such a boost.
I love Marcelo at third. Marcelo is maybe the best third baseman we have, including Alex Bregman at this point. But
I think you could put him at any position, and he's probably the best at that position that we have.
I agree with that. Just a naturally gifted athlete. But I think with Bregman coming back, and we've all seen he's been in the dugout this whole injury stint, working with everybody. Chris Cotillo has mentioned quite a few times that after games, he's sitting with the iPad with Bregman and Anthony specifically, working on swings. They're taking dry swings in the dugout. They've moved Roman Anthony's locker next to Bregman's, which I didn't know that until very recently. I think that's awesome.
Awesome.
But I think that his veteran presence there on the infield will really kind of help stabilize things. And hopefully he keeps hitting above his weight. What do you kind of expect from him when he comes back?
Honestly, I don't expect him to necessarily be at the, was he at like 3 WAR already before he even got hurt?
Yeah,
I don't think he's necessarily going to be MVP
in the All-Star vote too.
Yeah, and I think that continues. I think you're going to see him, if not the starter, he's going to be in the All-Star game. I doubt he's going to play just coming off the injury, but
agreed.
I think that's the guy you're getting. I think you're getting the All-Star, and really, we don't need him to necessarily be this just MVP level player the whole year. We just need him in the lineup, man.
Yeah.
Like he stabilized everything. And I'm assuming he kind of slides back into that number 2 hole. And again, you're talking about his relationship with Roman. Roman Anthony's batting second right now for the Red Sox. He's batting .215. Like, just lineup wise, this lengthens us so much, especially with Massa coming back as well. You just start getting some really professional at-bats back in the lineup, and that trickles down when those guys are watching in the on-deck circle and they're seeing how they're approaching the attack of a pitcher. Like, that's, I think, going to have an even bigger impact than, like you said, he's a leader on this team already. He's in the dugout. He's in their ear the whole time. But I think just having him day in, day out, being in the lineup with them is going to be huge.
Yeah, I think his presence on the field can't be understated at this point. We kind of saw, right after the injury, the errors ticked up, especially kind of right through the middle, right before Campbell got sent back down. Hamilton has looked not like a defensive replacement we all hoped he would be there at second.
And not himself, really.
No, I've been a long time, as long as you can be with David Hamilton, I guess, long-time David Hamilton supporter. I got a chance to see him pinch run when the Sox came to St. Louis last year. And he's faster in person than he is on TV, which is nuts. But I don't know what's going on with him, and it's to the point where I think you might see a DFA maybe around the All-Star break, because kind of the chatter is that Marcelo will shift to second once Bregman is able to play third base again, which my guess is that we'll see Bregman full-time third base after the All-Star break. He'll come back before DH, probably 2 or 3 games, 4 max would be my guess, right before the All-Star break. And then we'll see Myers shift across to second. And really, I would rather have Romy Gonzalez as my backup second baseman than David Hamilton at this point.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me, if you remember Billy Hamilton back in the day, who, coming up through the minors, everyone's thinking, oh, this dude's going to steal 100 bases at the major league level. And he had that ability. He just didn't have the ability to get on base. And that's, we kind of saw something similar with Duran a couple years ago. The dude struggled immensely before figuring it out. And there's a chance that Hamilton still could do that. If he can hit 280, the dude's a star.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He might be running out of leash to do that on this team, especially when you look at the guys we have coming up with, Myers got to go somewhere. Is Campbell our first baseman for the next 8 years? I don't know. So
I think, have you watched any of the Woo Sox games since the demotion?
No, I haven't been able to catch those since he got sent down.
I've watched a couple, not full games, just kind of here and there, checking in on it. He still seems very stiff at first. I mean, he's just been doing it for a week, so that's understandable. Yeah. But I think he profiles as a first baseman, at least offensively. He's not your typical first baseman build. He's not your Rhys Hoskins, your Mike Napolis, who they showed there towards the end of the game. It was awesome to see Nat back in Boston.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorites. Him and Tito back at Fenway. You love to see it. But I think that Hamilton could. I think that he could play first realistically for the life of that contract. If he can't, there's a deeper conversation there. I think this season Marcelo slides over to second, but I think there's a very real conversation heading into 26 about moving Trevor Story to second and slotting Marcelo into his natural position at short. And
I think honestly, and not to cut you off here, you're crazy if we don't. I mean, Trevor Story has been a great defensive shortstop, but he's not anymore. I haven't checked this week. I think last I checked, he was minus on defensive run saved. Like he's outs above average, and it's not crazy, but like he's not the the plus 10 DRS guy that he used to be, and he was that at second base. He was an elite defender. I think it was 22 or 23 that he played second for us almost exclusively. Get Meyer where he can make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, and to throw that stat with you, he's currently at a -1 OAA.
Yeah, so it's like I said, not horrible, but not not Meyer.
A tick under league average. That's not what you paid Trevor Story to do, to be a tick under league
especially
average.
When he's not hitting the way Trevor Story used to hit.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen spurts of it now twice, and it's been a bit of an extended run here offensively for him. Those of you who have kind of followed along, you know that I have like a 5 or 6, 7 part anti-Trevor Story.
I've read the saga.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be another one at some point. But I mean, I think realistically, and we're not to the trade deadline stuff at the moment, but I think realistically, like you need to try to include him in one of those deals and allow Marcelo this season to shift to shortstop. If you don't, you've got to move him in the offseason. I don't see any way around it.
I think that really kind of underlines the importance of Bregman's influence on this team too, because really other than Story, Duran is a veteran at this point, but he's what, 3 years?
He's not a natural leader.
Time. Yeah, like and
he'll tell you
he's got his own struggles that he's working on, and he's open about it. And from that side of it, I really appreciate it because I'm sure a lot of the young guys are also going through those same struggles trying to figure things out. But a guy like Bregman, who's played a full season of playoff games, like that's the guy that you want to build around for the future. And I think Story was kind of the intended target to do that with at the time he signed the contract, and obviously with injuries, I don't think that worked out how either side was hoping it would.
Absolutely.
And still a tremendous player, but having a guy like Bregman on your team like that, I think kind of allows Trevor Story to be a little bit expendable and to kind of
Mhm.
try to let us get out from under a contract that's pretty much underwater at this point.
Yeah, that's. I was wondering if you were going to use the underwater phrase, since that was the phrase of the month here in June with the Red Sox, about
Yeah.
a very different contract. Um, but I think it's interesting. I do think that if the Red Sox can, and that's a big can, move off the Trevor
Yeah.
Story contract at some point, I mean, you're looking at probably the Red Sox taking on half at
At
minimum.
least.
Um,
I mean, probably
you know,
similar to a Chris Sale type of a deal, I'm
yeah,
guessing. So
you
we're
would
not going to
hope
get
that that
back a
would turn
major league
into,
guy. But
yeah, yeah, you would hope you could turn that into somebody who's projected for more than what Vaughn Grissom is now. Um,
yeah,
because I mean, it seems like he's lost his starting spot to Blaze Jordan down in Worcester, and good for Blaze. Blaze
I
is
know it's
really
good to see
catching
that.
fire down there, and it's taken him 4 years to kind of get here, but it looks like he's really found his stroke down there in AAA. And I'm excited to see what he can contribute. And I think that if the Red Sox kind of punt on this season, I could see Blaze Jordan making the major league roster come August, into
Yeah,
August, beginning of September. Get him up here for a cup of coffee and see what happens, see what you've got. Because if you've got your first base replacement already in the system in Blaze Jordan, you don't need to go out and trade for a Reese Hoskins or somebody like that.
exactly. Yeah, which
So,
honestly, I'd rather see that than try to bring in a rental because, you
mhm,
know, I don't know where this season ends up going. It's hard to really imagine us as more than a wild card team the way they've been playing lately. And obviously,
yeah,
anything can happen. We're halfway through. It could go on a run
for
and
sure.
make me look like an idiot, and I hope they do. But
Yeah.
I don't think the East is really in play at this point. So, what do you have to give up to get? Do we give the Brewers David Hamilton back? Like,
Right.
do we?
Well, I mean, we sent him Jackie Bradley Jr. and then they sent him back to us. So,
Yeah,
so
I
the
mean,
precedent's there. Um, I always thought that I liked Heim. I have my qualms with how Heim approached every trade, really, except
yeah,
for the Willier for Christian deal. Um, Tyler O'Neill, that worked out. Well, that was Brez. Um, but
yeah,
I wish that Heim worked the trade market like he thought he wanted to instead of how he actually did. Because it felt
yeah.
like,
He
yeah,
tried to win
we
every
traded
trade
JBJ just to get him back. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
after his value had diminished, unfortunately. And I
Oh,
love JBJ, but that
yeah.
was not the yeah.
That was actually the first thing I thought of, because I don't know if you saw it. There were some trade proposals floated around for Jaron Duran straight up for Chris Sale. Um,
Huh.
and I thought that would be hilarious for Breslow to do. Um, but man, like, trade Sale for Von Grissom, and then you have to trade Jaron Duran to get him back.
I say the only thing that makes me nervous, and I'll be honest with you, if Chris Sale pitched like Chris Sale, sure, bring him in.
Yeah,
But I feel like if he would even like cross into the Boston greater area, he would immediately like implode
he
or
would
something
find a
like
bike to
that.
flip off of. Um,
Exactly. It'll be the final destination for Chris Sale, literally.
yeah, yeah, and he's currently on the shelf with a cracked rib.
He's had some
Um,
trouble with those ribs, huh?
yeah, he dove after a grounder,
Of course
which,
he did.
Chris doesn't need to be doing that. Yeah, so he's on the 15-day IL with a fractured rib. So he's with a fractured rib cage. So they've gotten
Ooh,
even a little more specific. Um, so I imagine that we probably won't see old friend Chris Sale for quite some time this season. So
yeah.
Jaron Duran is at least not headed to Atlanta in a Chris Sale trade.
Maybe for Ozuna, you never know, but
They've tried once.
yeah,
I don't hate the Sean Murphy part of that. I wrote about that last
I
week,
did see that, yeah.
um, about how to replace Connor Wong and his putrid production. I would love to bring Sean Murphy in, and I think that that's a deal that gets done pretty cheap, to be honest with you. I don't think that it
Yeah.
cost a ton of prospect capital. Um, Nobody in the top 10 for sure. But I'm very curious, and we'll get more into the trade deadline here in just a little bit. We were talking about Alex Bregman and just kind of how he seems to settle everything when he's in the lineup, the infield, the lineup, every bit of it. And so it came out during the Angels series, which we are not going to spend a lot of time on, that both he and Scott Boras are willing to have extension talks with the Red Sox this season before his opt-out comes at the end of this year, which I think that even with the injury, unless things just go horribly wrong for him through the remainder of the season, Bregman would still opt out at the end of this year. Do you think that the Red Sox should offer him an extension that should keep him here through retirement? I guess really is what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're trying to, again, kind of weigh, like, how good does this contract look in 5, 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I think he ages a lot better in Fenway than he does in Comerica Park, right?
Yeah.
And, he knows that. Boras knows that. But at the same time, I think Boras also knows that the Red Sox might be a little bit desperate to do it now that a certain somebody has been traded across the country.
Yeah, the Red Sox have no leverage in this situation anymore.
They don't. And, I could see them signing him to an extension. I'm not sure you see them bringing the AAV down much lower than it is right now to do it. And that's kind of where I question how far ownership's willing to go to do it. Should they? Absolutely. The dude's going to age well. He's exactly who we need at Fenway Park. And for the young guys, I think they should do it. But if they will, I don't know yet. I really don't.
So if they went 225 for 6, you're looking at $37.5 million over the next 6 years. I don't hate that.
I think I would sign. I mean, if I'm ownership, I take that. I don't know if Boras takes it.
The only thing that makes me wonder about it is if you look at Matt Chapman in San Francisco, who was in this exact same situation last season, and he's a Boras guy. And Matt told Scott, like, hey, like, I love it here. I want to be here. Let's figure out a deal. And really, he ended up with a contract that will probably be a steal even at the end of it. I don't remember what the exact number is off the top of my head.
I want to say he was around 160, 180, something like that. Let me see.
151. 151.
Wow, that's lower than I thought it was.
Yeah. I think that if you're sitting at 6 and anything north of 2, I think that Bregman takes it.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, please do. I would love to have him here long term. Especially, he's got a great relationship with Cora. He's, like you said, Roman Anthony's lockering up next to him now. He's already getting in their ears and building relationships there. I think if you get Bregman signed, it not only kind of a similar effect as this last year, right? Bregman signed in spring training, and suddenly everyone's taking the Red Sox seriously again. I think that has the same effect. If Bregman's willing to stay, especially knowing how much the Tigers are drooling at the chance that he opts out, I think if he stays, you have a much higher likelihood of locking up the other 2 of the big 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that kind of puts you in a really good position on the infield for the next 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and we've talked about this in our Slack channel a few times, and we've talked about it on here too. I think that Bregman is here for however long Alex Cora is here. I think that Cora is really the only reason he came to Boston. It kind of came out that maybe Breslow wasn't super sold on Bregman, but Henry and Cora and Theo and all of them wanted him, but they took some convincing for Bregman. And
I still say whoever leaked that should be fired.
Yeah. And we can get into that. I know it's not on the rundown. We can get into that. There was the piece that came out last week that said that there are people that are effectively like looking to like be turncoat for Breslow, that they're effectively willing to sell him out, and they don't think that he's long for the job. And we can get into that if you want to. I'd be happy to have that conversation.
I definitely have thoughts. So.
Yeah. But I do. I think that Bregman's here for as long as Cora is here. So whether or not an extension gets done this season, even with an opt out, I think that the Red Sox bring him back, maybe for more than $40 million a season. I think that you might have to pay 45, and then that's when I start to question if it's worth it.
Yeah, for a player that side of 30, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, if we're talking Juan Soto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., something like that, like yeah, I'd pay that. But but then you have to deal with the whole back end of both of those contracts, which if you want to talk about underwater contracts, give each of those 3 years. When you've got a DH making $750 million and another DH making $500 million. And I love Vladdy. Yeah. I wanted us to be in. I wanted us to win the Soto sweepstakes. Like I was all about it. But those contracts are just asinine.
Yeah.
But I do. I want to see Bregman back. I think that he is the type of veteran leader that we need in Boston. And the young guys seem to flock to him. Even like you catch him in the dugout during the offensive side of the bottoms of the innings, and like he's talking to Rafaela and he's talking to Duran and he's talking to everybody. It's not just Marcelo and Roman, and they get all the attention because they're the two big of the big three. But I mean, everybody flocks to this guy because he's a proven winner, and you can put an asterisk next to it if you want to. I understand that. I understand why some people have still not really anymore. I mean, it's 2025. Like, I think that we can move past the cheating scandal.
I mean, 8 straight ALCS appearances don't just happen because you cheated 1 year. So.
Yeah. Like Alex Bregman is a ball player, and that is what this team needs. And I do think it's interesting. I was going to ask you if you've caught this recently, because they're talking about like the throwback game that Nesson's doing on Tuesday. And the thing that Merloni keeps bringing up is, man, these teams had veterans. They had old guys. And when they showed Napoli, he kept talking about, Napoli had been in the league for X amount of years. And I wonder if, and I've said this on here before, I don't think that Merloni specifically says anything without being informed. And I think that he kind of is the guy, and I don't know if they trust him to do this or if he just does it. And he just kind of floats things just to see what happens. And so I'm wondering if, because Breslow has still recommitted to buying at the deadline, I'm wondering if we're looking at some veteran talent to try to bring in to stabilize this young roster. And I don't hate that idea.
No,
I don't know where
I actually was working,
but
yeah, that really is the question. I was working on a piece a bit ago that I haven't put out yet. But you could kind of reference back to Napoli, right? That 2013 World Championship. You remember 2011, they brought in Carl Crawford. They brought in Adrian Gonzalez. They brought in, I believe that was when we got Lackey as well, was 11. Don't fact check me on that. But they brought in these, big star players, and it was going to be, this dynasty in Boston. It was going to be Philly and the Red Sox in the World Series with their monster pitching staff and our lineup. And we collapse in September. We don't make the playoffs. Philly gets bumped in the first round, and Ryan Howard blows out his ankle and his career. And that, both of those teams kind of took a turn after that. And so we fire sell everybody off to LA. And 2013, it was guys like Napoli and Johnny Gomes and David Ross and, these veteran gritty. We need more beards. We need beards on this team, Alex. That's
I
what the thing is.
agree. Yes.
Yeah. But, they didn't have to spend an absurd amount of money to go get the premier player, but they got guys, like you said, with Bregman that were ball players. I feel like we had – Bregman reminds me of Pedroia. That 2013 team, I feel like we had like 4 or 5 Pedroias. Guys just had that grit. And, I think having that with the young guys, I mean, we've got the talent. We've got the ability.
Absolutely.
There. Obviously, they're there for a reason. But I feel like it is just kind of missing that grit where, you get to August and things get tough. You got to have some people that can push through that who've been there.
Yeah.
So I don't know who we bring in. I don't know what veterans might be available for something like that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this team needs some of that grit.
It's been reported. Absolutely. I mean, I'm all about more facial hair on the Boston Red Sox.
I'm doing my best.
It's been reported that and we'll come back to the infield shuffle because we've talked on it a little bit already. So we'll jump ahead to the trade deadline. It's been reported that they're looking at starting pitching, which for as good as Lucas Giolito has really surprised me, and I think that if they do decide to sell, I actually think that you'll get a pretty decent return for him.
Agreed.
Because if he doesn't pitch, it's either 140 or 150 innings. It's a club option for next year, and it's like $15 million. It's dirt cheap for a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
So
he's making what, 21 million right now, I think?
Yeah.
Or 19, something like that.
I think it's 19, 20, somewhere around there. I know Buehler's like 21 and a half, and I hope that they trade him no matter what.
I think Giolito was 2 years, 39, so he's probably like 19 and a half.
Yeah. He's looked great. Brian Bayo somehow turned that last Angels start into a quality start.
He's matured a lot this year.
A lot, yeah. And those of you who have been following along, you know that there is no bigger Brian Bayo fan than me. I absolutely love him. I want him to be successful. I want him to be this team's number 2. I absolutely love him, and seeing him finally settle in this year, and specifically this last 6 weeks, it's been really, really refreshing to see, and I'm glad that he is finally stepping into his own. But Crochet, he got touched up a little bit in this Reds game. This was probably by far his worst start. It was his most earned runs on the season so far. Looked like he couldn't find his cutter. And not a lot, but a couple of his secondaries just weren't snappy in the way they normally do. And that's to be expected. Yeah. He's leading the league in innings still, I think, even after tonight. I think that still keeps him in the lead. And he's young and he's never thrown like this. And so I'm glad he's locked up for a long time. Obviously he's not going anywhere, but I do think that some starting pitching is necessary. And I think that you have to subtract, the Walker Buehlers of the world to upgrade this rotation. As good as Richard Fitz had been to start the season, he realistically still needs rehab appearances. I don't feel confident about that start tomorrow at all.
I wish we were able to rest some more of the bullpen tonight and not have brought Weissert out, but tomorrow I feel like Whitlock's probably going to be getting 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think that's why we didn't see him tonight. I think kind of the plan is probably for Fitz to maybe go 4 at most, even if he's having a good game, and then probably Whitlock for 5 or 6. Yeah, and you get Whitlock in at 5 and 6. Then Justin Wilson for 7, and you're kind of piecemealing it to try to get to Chapman in the 9th. But if Fitz could go 4, that's huge. But I think that you've got to trade Walker Buehler no matter what. Take whatever return you get for him at this point. You're talking very low floor.
When you have a guy who's he's talking about, I'm not worried about losing my spot in the rotation. I'm worried about losing my spot in the league. That's concerning if and this is a confident, albeit kind of cocky guy in the past. Yeah. If he knows he doesn't have it, that's concerning to me. And I really, Giolito is pitching every bit as good as I hoped Walker Buehler would. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting Giolito to throw that well. So I guess that kind of evens out for me. But
especially
Buehler's got to go.
The start that kind of began this run of really good starts for Giolito, his fastball was touching like 96, 97 and was hanging out there pretty regularly for the next 2 starts after that. But these last 2, he's sitting 93, 94, but it's effective 93, 94. And that's not what you expect in modern baseball. Typically if you're hanging out with a low 90s fastball, you're getting just knocked to wherever. But he's dotting really well. He's painting his edges. And he's kind of slotted in as our number 3 at this point, because Bayo is your de facto number 2. Then you've got Giolito and a hope and a prayer for your 4 and 5.
I say whoever's not hurt at the moment is kind of our 4 and 5. And honestly, if Giolito can learn to be effective, the dude's not getting any younger. The last thing we need is another pitching injury. So if he can figure out 93, 94 and get some innings out of it, man, stay right there. You don't have to strike people out. Like get some easy soft contact and now that we have some defense on the infield behind it with
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mayer and Bregman coming back, like, yeah, get the ground balls. Let's get out of this.
Yeah. Is there a starting pitcher that you would like for realistic starting pitcher? Like, obviously, like, there's guys that you would love to go out. Like, I've been on and I know he's hurt, but like, I've been on the Jared Jones train since the offseason. Like, I wanted a straight Casas for Jones trade. I thought that would be beneficial for both sides. But is there a
for what it's worth,
realistic
Casas would
starting
look
pitcher?
great in PNC Park.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, as much as I would love to see, a big splashy addition, I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Zach Eflin come over.
Okay.
I don't know. The Orioles I don't think they're really going anywhere at this point in the season.
No, I think kind of.
I don't know how likely they are to. Yeah, I don't think they're likely to necessarily trade in the division, but I also don't think they'd be opposed to it. Especially, I think Eflin is on his last year of the contract, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe he's a free agent next year.
Yeah, so it probably wouldn't cost all that much. The dude's a proven, he's pitched in the AL East. He's done well with the Rays. He's done well with the Orioles. And I think that's somebody you could get that, maybe isn't going to be as expensive, but could potentially kind of be a Nathan Eovaldi type of pickup, right? Where at the time he had to bounce around a little bit and kind of found another gear. I feel like Eflin has that at least number 3, kind of high 2 potential. And I think that would be one that I'd like to see. Again, I don't know how much the Orioles would be willing to part with somebody in their division. If you wanted to get a little splashier, I think the Marlins are definitely going to be selling. I'm not sold on on Sandy Alcantara. I wouldn't mind seeing like an Edward Cabrera. That would be an intriguing kind of multi-year option. He's going to cost more, but
absolutely,
Casas is from South Florida.
Yeah, and the Marlins have been hot and heavy after Casas a few times.
Yeah.
Alcantara led my very first trade deadline primer about a month ago now. And ever since, I mean, I think let me pull up his pitching line.
It's been an interesting year for him because
stuff has looked good. Almost 7
the results
ERA.
have absolutely not.
Yeah, he's got.
But he's hitting like 97, 98.
Yeah, and so I don't know if it's I just need to get out of Miami situation.
Which could be.
Yeah. I think that if the price is right, he's worth the trade, because if you think that Andrew Bailey can work with him and bring that ERA down, and you can have your qualms with Andrew Bailey, that's perfectly fine. I understand them. But I think that at the end of the day, Andrew Bailey is a pretty good pitching coach. And
I agree.
I think that, somebody like Alcantara, who's sitting 96, 97 with some used to be plus secondary stuff, he's worth a flyer in my opinion. That might be top of my list as like a reclamation. I'm more like,
I say, look, it depends of like how deep we're buying here, right? Are we buying because we're making the playoffs? Or are we buying because this is some control and they're selling?
That's a good designation, Caleb. And we talked about this kind of when we were setting up for the podcast. Like, I think that the Red Sox should buy solely because the AL is so weak that if you go out and bring in a starting pitcher, maybe 2, a reliever, and if you don't believe Christian Campbell can play first base at the major league level this year, a first baseman on a rental deal, I think that you make the playoffs. Does that necessarily guarantee that you go further than the wild card or the DS? No, but I think that it goes a long way to showing free agents like, okay, they traded Devers, but then they went out at the trade deadline and they spent that money. They've locked Alex Bregman up. They've offered Meyer and Anthony these deals. They brought these these trade pieces in, and they went to the playoffs. I think that if you make the playoffs, the Devers deal doesn't matter hardly at all anymore. And that feels weird to say just because of how impactful Rafael Devers obviously was with the Red Sox. But
absolutely,
if you can make the playoffs after trading Devers, I think that you've proven to everybody that your team doesn't go as one player goes. And so I think it would make a lot of free agents look more seriously at the Red Sox going into 26. A name that a name that I keep circling back to is Eric Fetty.
Mm.
And I'm local to St. Louis, so I hear a little more from that side of things. He hasn't been great this year. Let me get his line pulled up here. Google's listening.
I just picked him up on fantasy for a start last week, and he did okay.
Yeah, he's 3-7, but he's got a 4.11 ERA, 57 strikeouts, a 1.36 WHIP. So I mean, it's nothing that's going to blow you away.
But he's going to give you innings.
Yeah, and he's one of those. I wanted the Red Sox to be in on that deal last year, where that was a 3-team deal that got him to St. Louis. It was.
Is that with the White Sox? I think
White Sox and the Dodgers.
Right. Yeah.
The Dodgers sent Vargas to the White Sox.
That was the Tommy Edman deal, right?
Yes, or Tommy
Yeah.
Pham.
Or yes, Tommy Pham. Sorry.
Yeah, and was that? Yeah, that's how Edman got out there too. Yeah, it was a double Tommy deal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. Because Pham ended up in St. Louis with Fetty, and then Edman stuck and became a postseason folk hero for the Dodgers. Which those of us in the St. and I'm not a Cardinals fan by any stretch of the imagination, but those of us in the St. Louis area would have never guessed that Tommy Edman would do that. But I wish the Red Sox last year were in on Fetty, and and he did well for the Cardinals last year, but he did kind of stall after the trade. But I think that if we're talking in the Eflin world, if the Orioles are not willing to trade in the division, I think that Eric Fetty makes a lot of sense as a trade target for the Red Sox. Let's pull up his fan graphs. Let's see what some under the hood stuff says. Yeah, I mean it's a 2-year, $15 million deal. He's a free agent at the end of this year. A 4.49 FIP, a 0.6 WAR. It's F WAR off Fangraphs.
Say he's not going to light the world on fire, but we don't need a number 1. We need a number 4.
Yeah, and I think that Fetty slots into that really, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I like his pitch mix, sinker, cutter, sweeper, changeup. They all kind of live above the zone. He's got a 35-degree arm angle. Like, I like that. I think that that's an interesting spot to come out of. I mean, his baseball savant page is blue. But like you said, we need a 4 or a 5. We don't need a 1 or a 2. And I think if Eric Fetty is your 5, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. No, I mean, realistically, I was hoping Giolito would be a competent 5, and he's playing above his weight in my mind. Having guys at that point that can just eat some innings. The number one problem I see on this team isn't necessarily starting pitching. I mean, it's caused by the starting pitching, but it's our bullpen usage. Like
Absolutely.
Greg Weisser, they were talking tonight. That was his 41st appearance. 41. Yeah. We're like 87 games into the season. The dude's pitching every other game. We need somebody, and hopefully, a guy like Jordan Hicks threw tonight and looked pretty good. Hopefully he can kind of pick up some of those innings and be a little more fresh because he was coming off the IL. But
yeah, I have a love relationship with Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, I'm jury's out for me on that one. Obviously, you've probably seen him a lot more in St. Louis.
Prospect. Yeah. And I like Jordan Hicks. I think that out of the bullpen, he makes a lot more sense than when the Giants were trying to work him out as a starter. He doesn't have the stamina.
The salary makes a lot less sense out of the bullpen, but
and they signed him to be a starter. And I said this on the last episode that I think that I mean, he was obviously thrown into the deal as like a way to make money match up a little better, but that it was a salary dump. Hicks was a salary dump for the Giants, but I think that the Red Sox were in on him before he signed. The Red Sox came in second to the Giants to sign him. I think they're looking at him as a Chapman replacement. If if they do decide to sell Chapman, I mean, he's not going to bring you back. Who the Rangers gave the Royals? Was it Cole Reagans?
Yeah, it was Reagans.
Yeah, he's not going to bring you back Cole Reagans at this point, but he's going to bring you back a pretty good arm.
And granted, he's throwing a whole lot better than he was when the Rangers got him.
Absolutely. If you were to package him in a deal to say Philadelphia with Jarren Duran, you're probably looking at Andrew Painter at that point.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. If not Painter, Ranger Suarez would be interesting.
Yeah, the Phillies do have some depth. Like I don't know how much major league depth they'd be willing to.
I want Mick
part
Abel.
with. Yeah.
I want Mick Abel real bad.
I Abel or Painter would be an intriguing deal for me.
If you could throw in off limits.
I could too, but for the right, I mean, if you're getting Alvarado, even when he comes back, isn't eligible for postseason play because it's the suspension.
Right.
And if you're throwing Duran in with a couple years of control on top of that, Duran doesn't have to be the guy in Philly. Schwarber's a free agent. He slots in at leadoff. Yeah. Yes, he does. So
I would love to try to bring Schwarber in. If not on a trade, if not in a trade like that, I would love to bring Schwarber in as a free agent next year.
I would like him as a free. And again, you talk about veteran dudes that have been there. Schwarber, leads the pack of just good dudes.
Yeah, I don't think there's many like better guys in the majors than Kyle Schwarber. And once again, just a guy who absolutely is a ball player. Like, yeah, he's a DH only, and he's played some left field for the Phillies this year.
Maddie and maybe get away with that in Fenway a little more, but
yeah, but are you going to take reps? Because I mean, to bring in a Schwarber, like obviously Duran is gone at that point. So
and Yoshida becomes an issue
to left field. So would you take reps away from Anthony to give them to Kyle Schwarber? Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, and it's one of those things
unless you're rotating out of the DH spot.
Yeah, and then you have $18 million of Yoshida that honestly is a quality hitter if he could just get some playing time.
Absolutely. He starts his.
I like Yoshida
tomorrow. I do too.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, this podcast historically is a big fan of Masataka Yoshida.
Yeah, and as they should be. And I honestly, I don't know how much we see him in the outfield moving forward, especially with, Anthony. And I still see Campbell getting some reps out there when he comes back up, potentially.
Probably.
So I don't know how much we see Yoshida in the outfield, but we need some macho man in that lineup again because he doesn't strike out. The dude puts the ball in play. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I mean, yes, there was an onslaught of runs tonight and that second game against the Blue Jays, but like that's few and far between. And not that I'm wanting the Red Sox to score 15, 16 runs, playing on like rookie level of MLB The Show type stuff. But I want to see more like in that stretch. We won a bunch of 1-run, 2-run, 3-run games. Like if Yoshida's out there, Yoshida is probably getting on base twice a game.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's working walks, he's, blooping something out right in the gap there in left center or in right center. Yoshida is going to get on base at some point, pretty much every game that he's in. And good things happen when people are on base. It makes the pitcher change their approach. They're going to approach because I assume he'll slot in probably that 5 hole. I don't see him hitting much above that. And so that kind of takes some pressure off of Willier and Cedon and Campbell when he gets back and Narvaez, who has slowed down considerably at the plate because he's never caught this many innings in his life before. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Red Sox navigate these returns because you've got Hunter Dobbins should be coming off the injured list sometime after the All-Star break. Tanner Houck has now had 3 rehab outings.
3 fairly ineffective rehab
and he came
outings
out of
so
the
far,
bullpen for the one yesterday. They went with an opener for that, and he got knocked
Which,
around.
to be honest, could be a role that you see him return to at some point in this season.
I
Simply
almost think that's
for
the
depth
only way you
reasons.
get back to Tanner Houck at the major league level is you have to put him in the bullpen.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously Richard Fitz is what he is, but he's thrown worlds better than Houck has. Dobbins has thrown better than Houck has. Yeah, like I don't see a spot for Houck unless you can unload Buehler. I don't see Houck having a spot when he's ready to come back into that rotation.
And I think if we're, a gun to your head, forced to choose between Walker Buehler and Tanner Houck for your 5th starter, like that's a terrible situation to be in right now.
I mean, we're talking 9 ERA versus 7.
Yeah. And I think at that point, you really have to hope that they do go out on the trade market and bring somebody in.
Honestly, buying or selling, I could care less which, as long as you're bringing in starting pitching. That's kind of where I'm at this point. Because, if you look at, and this kind of in a way circles back to, Breslow and the whole discussion of whether or not he's going to be in this job for a long time if people want him out. I feel like this deadline is him playing for his job, basically. I mean, you look at last year was, hey, we're buying, and we brought in Lucas Sims, Luis Garcia, who both pitched horribly before getting hurt. And your right-handed bat was, and again, no disrespect here, was Danny Jansen.
Yeah.
Who wasn't even in a starting role.
That was so interesting.
I could see him saying, oh yeah, we're definitely buying at the deadline, and then doing that again and calling that a playoff push. I don't think that cuts it.
No. And we've talked about it on here quite a bit, and I want to get your opinion on it. I think that Craig Breslow is essentially keeping the Pobo seat hot for Alex Cora. Cora has made it no secret that he wants to move into the front office role. And I assume that there was a discussion with him before the Breslow hiring, like, hey, it's not your time yet. But in 3 years, it probably will be. I think that timeline may have sped up.
I think it's that. I'll be honest with you. It's not something I had considered in that way before. It makes sense. It's one of those things that, and this is kind of why I think it makes sense too. How things were handled with the whole Devers situation, and I don't know how much
which
we're going
Cora
to
had
find
signed
out
off on. That has come out that Cora did
exactly. Yeah. So, and that kind of. I mean, you talk about a guy who's gone to bat for Devers the whole season of, this is our guy, best DH in the league, kind of being able to make that tough decision. I mean, Cora's known the kid since 2018 when he was, his first full season in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Like, he had a relationship with the kid. And being able to make a tough decision like that, and obviously there were some hurt feelings and things throughout, but it almost feels like that was more of a Cora decision than it was a Breslow decision. And I don't know if we can really say that, but do you really think they trade Devers if Cora isn't okay with it? Like, I kind of see where you're coming from with that. And, I like Craig Breslow. I think he's a smart dude. I think he's got maybe a little bit of a propensity to overcomplicate things in the way he phrases and tries to explain things, which I don't know if we have time on this podcast, but PR is my background, and the last 3 years have been a train wreck for the Red Sox when it comes to spokespeople and public relations in general. But I feel like Breslow is kind of the guy that comes in and kind of rights the ship, almost like a Ben Sherrington type of thing, where he's going to come in, he's going to right the ship, and he's probably not going to get all that much credit for what
Hmm.
ends up being some success. And to a point, I think Heim is going to be the same way with some of the
I
pieces he
think we're
brought
already
into the
seeing that
organization.
with Heim.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean Weiler alone is
yeah,
Vasquez for Weiler Abreu was a steal of a deal in
yeah,
hindsight.
and I don't know how active you are, like social media wise, like Twitter, Blue Sky, specifically
Hmm.
Twitter. Um, but there's a lot of, especially right after the Devers trade, there's been a lot of like, I don't think Heim Bloom would have done this. Maybe we didn't give Heim Bloom enough credit. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I liked Heim Bloom, and I like Craig Breslow, but I had my complaints with Heim that I think ultimately the front office had very similar complaints. He wouldn't commit to
Hmm.
one path or another, and I think his trade deadline mishaps outside of the Vasquez deal really is what sunk him in Boston.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what he does with a small market team in St. Louis next year. I'll be watching that with some added interest. I'll probably try to make a couple extra games next year, um, because the area of the stadium that I like to sit in is not far from the GM's office, and so I would love to eventually try to run into him at some point. But because I really liked Heim, and I thought that he handled the media very, very well. Heim was a very good
Yeah.
spokesperson. And I think that is Breslow's biggest fault, is that Breslow doesn't present well. Like you said, he's incredibly intelligent. And I think
I
that,
think he could teach at Harvard or Yale or wherever.
yeah,
Like, I think he could get away with that. I just think in front of people, and I'll be honest with you, Sam Kennedy is the same way. Like,
yeah,
and kind of what you said about Bloom of like picking a direction, right?
yeah.
I think his problem was he didn't want to pick one way or another, and they were saying one thing and then doing another, and
And like you said, he tried to
Boston's
win
a
every
tough
single trade.
market. Yeah, like sometimes you gotta just recognize that, hey, this isn't gonna work. We're gonna do this. We're gonna back off it, or hey, we're going for it, and then actually go for it.
Hmm.
But getting stuck in between the two was just his downfall. And Breslow, and to his credit, Breslow has made some gutsy moves. I mean,
Oh
trading
yeah,
Kyle Teal for Crochet, I mean, obviously right now that feels like a win, and I think we ultimately become, it's a win either way. It's kind of like the sale trade, right? We gave up
yeah,
Moncada, and that was the price of doing business. In a couple years, I'll be interested to see if that's a trade we won or if that's almost even, because Teal
yeah.
is, yeah, I mean, I think if we keep him, he's in the major leagues right now, and Wong is gone. So
Probably, yeah,
it's interesting because he's made trades like that. He's done things that are gutsy, and I think something short of, and I don't want to say a Crochet level trade because usually Garrett Crochets aren't available at the deadline, but
right.
something short of that kind of an impact, especially in the wake of the Devers trade, they have money to spend. We all know
Hmm.
they have money to spend. I feel like they've got to bring in somebody, and maybe that's extending Bregman. Maybe that's what that ends up being. But they
Yeah.
have to do something to show that, hey, we're still the Red Sox. We're still going for it.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't revolve around one player in endeavors. And you look at the Yankees, and it's the Judge universe, right? Everything
Right.
kind of goes around that. We don't revolve around one player, but we need some players
Yeah.
that we can
But
kind of have anchor.
even with the Yankees, like, yeah, like it's Judge's world that everybody's playing in, but you also have Garrett Cole and Max Fried. So you have
Yeah,
two
and we've
ace
we've
caliber
lost the
starters.
arms race. We've
Yeah.
lost the arms race in the last really 5 to 6 years, because that was the. I mean, that's why we brought in Bailey. Was we
Yeah.
need to fix our pitching development.
Hmm.
And it used to be that, it's okay, we don't develop pitchers, but we sign a Chris Sale, or we
Right.
sign a Valdi, or Porcello was a kind of a flyer, but
Yeah.
we bring in the pitchers from outside the
A
organization.
David Price.
And yeah, there we go. That's what I was reaching for. But like, who is that at this point? Who are we bringing in? That's, yeah, we got Houck and Bayo and they're turning the corner, but like, we need somebody else that has to come in. And I really do think it has to be before the deadline for people to take the Red Sox seriously in the offseason. Because free agency realistically starts August 2nd. That's when people
Yeah.
are figuring out, okay, who's doing what, where am I wanting to go, who's committed, and that's a pitch we've got to win this season. Because if we wait to
Mhm.
the off season, I think we get jumped again.
Yeah. There I've got the 2026 free agent pitchers pulled up. It's a really interesting mix of people.
Hmm.
I would really, because Arizona has kind of fallen out of it since the Corbin Burns injury, and that division is
Yeah,
going
that
to
was a
be
shame.
won by probably the Dodgers, but potentially the Padres, and the Giants will be there too. Like Arizona's probably not even sniffing a wild card position. If the Red
Hmm.
Sox legitimately think that they can make even the first wild card spot, if they think that that's attainable, but we're talking third just to get in, go out and get a Zach Gallen. He's a free agent next, at the end of this
Yep.
year. I think that he slots in right there at the number 2. I think that you could probably get him to sign an extension, or at least sign a new contract, in that bargaining window in November before any other team can talk to him. If you're going to go
Hmm.
big, because there was links to
Agreed.
Dylan Cease and King before the season started. The Padres are not selling unless
No,
things just
not a chance.
drive off a cliff tomorrow. The Padres are not selling. So look at these teams that have a Zach Gallen. Like you said, Zach Eflin. Like Baltimore's not doing anything this season. Um, who else?
I think
Eric Fetty.
I don't know if they bring him back. Brandon Woodruff is an interesting option. I know
Yeah,
they have a mutual option. He's a guy that I've always kind of wanted to see in Boston, and
mhm.
he's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be the Cy Young level Woodruff that we've seen, but I feel like that's a guy that could still get outs.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. Um, even
I'm looking at this list too, by the way. So I'm pulling up too. I was curious.
yeah, and there's not a ton that jumps out at you.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's interesting that Kodai Senga has a conditional player option. Um,
Which how the Mets are going, I don't think there's any chance he
no,
exercises.
unless he just hates it there. But like, I wouldn't want Marcus Stroman.
No.
The
Chris
Tigers aren't going
Bassett
to
would be
trade
an
Flaherty.
interesting. Yeah. I think, well, yeah.
Jordan Montgomery's another name that I think makes some sense. He's had a better year this year than you would think he
I don't
did.
think he's as bad as people look at him as.
So
I know
once again, I have some
last year was
experience here.
horrible.
Since he came through with the Cardinals.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you're looking at next year at best with him. Um, but I think that that's a name. I think that out of everybody, that could be a reclamation project like the Red Sox are want to do. Jordan Montgomery is one that makes a lot of sense. I don't think you trade for him, but I think that if you
No.
bring him in, I mean, last season wasn't great. It was like a 6.4 ERA, and he got demoted to the bullpen. But what do you expect when the owner of the team comes out and was like, "That's the worst contract I've ever handed out in my life," like to the media right after a start? Like, so I don't think that
Yeah.
Montgomery is as bad as what people remember him being. I think that that's just a situation where you're playing for a team that doesn't want you, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Well,
had
and
Tommy John. But I think that if you're looking at a reclamation project going into next year, I don't hate Jordan Montgomery as a free agent.
and keep in mind his wife was doing her dermatology residency in
Mm-hmm.
Boston,
Yep.
which was why he was an attractive option to begin with for the Red Sox. But I mean, we saw, if you remember the Red Sox documentary and looking at Bayo's struggles when his wife and
Mm-hmm.
child were, stuck in the Dominican. It's hard being across the country from your spouse, and obviously as a baseball player, and I'm sure as a medical resident, that's some very busy
Yeah.
schedules to try to align. So I do think there could be a comfort factor as well in Boston. And the dude pitched for the Yankees and pitched extremely well. Like I do think he still
Mhm.
has that in him. And
He
if
pitched
you've
well for
done
the
it in the AL
Cardinals.
East, you can do it. Yeah. So I would like that one. I wouldn't necessarily trade for him at this point unless they're basically
No, I
giving
mean,
him
you're
away.
not
But
I mean, trading for him right now, I mean, you're not gonna see him this season. So it
I
wouldn't
mean,
make a
if
lot
you
of
wanted to
sense.
do Montgomery for David Hamilton, that would maybe
Yeah,
be the
I'd do
kind of
that.
trade that
Do
would
that,
would
yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And I bet Arizona would
But
do that too.
now the other intriguing thing here is if you did want to look at Arizona as a option here, Josh Naylor is a free agent after the season.
Yeah, that's a name I've seen pop up a little more than I expected. I've seen it
Same, to
more
be
and more
honest.
over Reese Hoskins the last week or so, and I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, obviously he's a rental. We've got a big lefty first baseman just kind of fits in Boston. It feels right.
Yeah.
But this lineup is pretty left-handed, so I do kind of like the Reese Hoskins. However, a very big left-handed batter is no longer in the lineup, and that did seem to mildly throw some things off. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe a 3-4 of Bregman and Naylor isn't the
I don't hate that.
worst combo.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. And I don't think it would cost much.
No,
I don't think that
especially
you're
like you
giving
said,
away
I don't
major
think
league
Arizona's
talent.
going anywhere in that division. So
No, not this year. It'll be interesting because I mean, realistically, what Burns had surgery like 3 weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago.
mhm.
So I wonder if they end up punting on 26 too, because you're not going to get him back until middle of the
And
season.
Gallen's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you
I mean
got
they're
Brandon Fott and um,
Merrill
I mean,
Kelly's like 36. Like
yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting. The West is such like it's so top heavy, and you want the Diamondbacks to be players in that market, but I just don't think they
yeah,
can be.
I played for the I played for the Diamondbacks when I was 9 and 10, and I've always had a soft spot in my heart for them
Yeah,
since then, especially watching the Dodgers just be the Yankees of the West for
yeah,
for so long. I,
yeah,
I kind of feel like the Diamondbacks and Red Sox have a similar path of, and
yeah,
obviously they beat the Yankees in the World Series, so that felt great.
yeah.
But
That always helps.
I've always had a soft spot for them, especially with Mike Hazen too in their
Yeah,
front office. Is just a good guy with some Boston roots. But
yeah,
speaking of which, I would kill to bring him over to the front office, but I
yeah. I
don't
don't
think
think that's
that's
going to
really
happen. He's
an
pretty happy
option.
out there.
Yeah, it's hard to come to a hard market when you're happy somewhere else. So
Yeah. Well, the last thing we've got here on the rundown, and we've kind of talked about Crochet a little bit in all of these discussions, is I know that you are of the opinion, or at least have the thought, that Garrett Crochet needs to be in the discussion for the All-Star Game starter for the American League.
yeah, I think he's in the discussion for that. I think he's in the discussion for the Cy Young. Obviously, Scooble put together a masterclass this past Sunday,
Oh my gosh. I
and
turned it on in the
that probably
sixth
boosted
inning.
his stock a little bit in the pitcher power
Man,
rankings.
I got to see him throw in
But
person
even
early in the month of June,
oh
and it was a bad outing for Scooble. I think he gave up 2 runs, but he went 6 1/3. Like
yep.
it we stumbled into some very cheap tickets, and I checked the pitching probables, and I was like, oh, it's Scooble. Yeah, we'll drive that 3 hours up to St. Louis and go watch that.
Oh, for
And
sure.
it was awesome to see him in person. But yeah, I think that's the conversation is it's Crochet and it's Scooble are your two AL
Yeah.
pitchers at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's not the flashy pick. I think at the end of the season, you're going to see Max Fried in that discussion as well. And obviously, this is a generation that loves the strikeouts, loves the
Mhm.
whip. Fried's not a flashy, blow you away guy, but he's been one of the better pitchers in the league.
Oh yeah,
So I think it kind of is between those, and obviously Hunter Brown has been fantastic for Houston. He's a little bit
yes,
overlooked.
Yeah.
but I think he's leading the league in ERA. So it's,
Yeah, I believe so.
throw them in a hat and shake it up and pick one for your Cy Young, and I probably wouldn't be mad about it. But
Yeah.
the biggest critique that people had for Garrett Crochet coming into the season was he's never thrown more than, I think it was 140 innings, right? Or
Mhm.
he's only thrown like 300 in his career, and he's a starter. The dude has been an absolute horse. I mean, he's leading the league in
Yeah.
innings pitched. He's leading the league in starts of 7 innings or more. He's leading
Mhm.
the league in strikeouts. He has been, and even today, he had a bad outing for him. It's the most runs he's given up, and still struck out 9 and walked 1 and gave you 6 innings
Yeah.
on 93 pitches. The dude's doing
Yeah.
everything that he can be to be the horse of that rotation,
Yeah.
and he's basically pulled a Jordan Hicks to do it.
Yeah.
And I have some respect for a guy who's going out of his comfort zone and kind of pushing beyond that, because he's with a team that he's committed to and he wants to
Mhm.
win. And innings pitched have kind of gone the way of wins in the last couple years.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss that era when talking St. Louis, when you had a guy like Chris Carpenter or Adam
Mhm.
Wainwright, who, regardless of whether his ERA is going to be 220 or 380, he's going to give you
Yeah.
225 innings.
Yeah.
And that's, again, looking at our bullpen usage, so huge for that team.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing, they always say about, like, on Crochet starts, like, the team as a whole is like, "Okay, we're gonna win today." But
Yeah.
today was the first win he's gotten in Fenway
Yeah.
all season.
How many? I think he had 5 straight no decisions, and he gave up like
Yeah.
3 runs total over
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane that, he's arguably 1A, 1B with Scooble, best pitcher of the American
Mhm.
League. And his record doesn't indicate it because the offense he'll
Yeah.
put up 7, 8 innings with 10 strikeouts and 1 earned or no earned, and the offense just doesn't pick him up. Or they do, and then the bullpen decides to give up 7 in the 8th. And, and it's just,
Yep.
it's got to be frustrating for him. But I think that he wouldn't have signed that deal if he wasn't like, oh, okay, I see a path forward here. Like, I see a path to a World Series title. And I think that
No, for
you can
sure.
tell in his comments now, halfway through the season, he still thinks that maybe it's not this year, but he still sees that. You can tell that he believes in this team and the direction that they're heading in. And I think that's big, especially for such a young guy.
No, absolutely. And regardless of where the Red Sox choose to go with this season, whether it's, we're buying hard at the deadline or we're kind of punting and trading some pieces and trying to build for next year, this is a bright future. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
the next 3-4 years of this is going to be so fun to watch Red Sox
Yeah.
baseball, because the pieces they're putting together and the guys they're building around, like, it's so easy to forget that, you know, Duran is 3 years into the majors. Weiler, this is his second full season. Weiler
Yeah.
Abreu is leading the team in home runs. Weiler Abreu is
Yeah.
leading this team in home runs
Yeah.
with 16. I mean, he's on pace to hit almost 30. Like, this in the next couple years is going to be a really fun thing to watch. And I
Yeah.
think you're going to see Crochet, if not this year, the next year, pitching in a playoff game 1 for sure.
Absolutely. And I think I've honestly been saying this since the beginning of the season, and I did before the season started. Like, I thought the AL East was in play, and I thought the wild card spot was a guarantee no matter what.
Hmm.
Even if the Yankees are doing what they're doing. Um, I've always said that our contention window cracked open this year, but 26 is when it flies all the way open. And I mean,
Absolutely.
I really think that you can see the Red Sox in 2026 in the World Series contention. I think that they're in that hunt. There's just so much here to like with Crochet, with Anthony, with Meyer, you figure out where Campbell's going to play. Like, I like Campbell. I like Narvaez. You have the Story issue, but you've got Sadan and Willier. And I mean, we all know that I would trade Jaron Duran tonight if
Hmm.
the deal was right. And that's not anything against him. And I can't say that like definitively enough. Like, I don't hate Jaron Duran. I like him so much that I want them to
Don't, but
capitalize.
he has such value. He has such surplus. Yeah.
And that's such a hard thing for some people to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fine. And I feel like I get painted as the Durant hater, and I don't. I've met him. I think he's a great guy. But man, sometimes you just got to strike while the iron's hot, and that iron is rapidly cooling off. And so you need to strike, and you need to strike now, in my opinion. But there's so many intangibles on this team, and when you dive into the numbers under the hood, there are just so many positive directional movements for this team that maybe 2025 isn't the year that it gets put all together, and that's okay. But I think 2026 is the first year where it all does come together. And like you said, this team's going to be fun to watch in the years to come. Hopefully the 27 season happens and there's not a year-long strike and lockout like there seems to be on the horizon. But I think there's a lot to love about this team. And we've talked about that on here. Like, even if the season is lost and they sell at the deadline, like, I'm going to turn every game on every night. I'm a 162 guy. I always have been, ever since MLB TV became a thing and I could actually watch the Red Sox consistently.
I feel that from Utah. So
yeah. I get blacked out 3 times a year with the Cardinal series and the 2 Royals series are the only things that I can't watch. But I do. Like, if this team sucks, I'm still going to watch every night, and I'll be driving the bandwagon bus for people to hop on come 26 when the Red Sox are hot and people are wanting to come back. Like, well, come on, let's have fun together. Like,
yeah.
But I do think there are going to be names and household names that are on this team right now that are not going to be part of this team in 26. And unfortunately, baseball is a business.
It has to happen, because if you look at, and this is kind of where I'm torn as well. Of I almost want them to buy at the deadline, and I'm almost okay if they don't, because if they do, where does that push a guy like Campbell or Meyer or Anthony? Like, they have holes they need to fill, but that also means playing time's getting taken away from guys who need to play, and albeit are I don't want to say underperforming, because they're still getting used to this level of play. But
Right.
I'm almost okay if we don't go crazy at the deadline, just to give these kids a chance to get their feet under them. And I want the Red Sox to win. If they go on a run, by all means, if you're in a playoff position, you got to bring somebody in, bring pitching either way. But I'm like you said, I wasn't expecting the window to open this quick, and I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting Anthony and Meyer to be taking meaningful at bats in June.
No.
And when we're smoking the Yankees 5 out of 6. So that happened faster than I thought. And if they can capitalize on it, great. But if they don't, I'm almost okay with it, just to give them the chance to really, get through a full season, get some at bats under their belt. Look at Abreu, right? Abreu was able to take 450 at bats last year and has been, head and shoulders better offensively this year than he was last year. He's a more complete player. I think you see Anthony, I think you see Meyer, and even Campbell, I think you see take that jump if they're able to get that full season under their belt. So if they sell, I'm okay with it. If they buy, I'm okay with it. I just want them to pick a direction and run in it. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is they've got to pick a lane. And if Breslow starts doing what Heim did and he just kind of rides the middle, I don't see Breslow being around after this year. And if that's what he does, then in my opinion, as somebody who likes Craig Breslow, he deserves to no longer be the Pobo of the Boston Red Sox, if that's the case.
Yeah. Promote Alex Cora, promote Chad Tracy, and we're all happy, right?
I would love to see Tracy in the Red Sox dugout.
I think he's earned his due, and especially with the relationship he has with the guys that are coming up. I think that would be an interesting
I think that if
dynamic
he's not
to kind
in
of settle
contention
them.
to replace Alex Cora, then he will be managing a big league club somewhere else, and that would be
100%.
a travesty to let him get out of the system.
Yeah. No, I agree. He's a hidden gem, if you will.
Yeah. And if you're not a big minor league person, like, you may not know a lot about Chad Tracy. And I'm not the biggest minor league guy in the world. Like, I don't sit down. I'm not anywhere close to any of the affiliates, so I can't go watch them.
Same.
But I think Worcester comes to Memphis, which is the Cardinals AAA affiliate. I think that they come like every 3 years or something like that. So I think the last time they were here was when they were still the Paw Sox, and I
Rest in
didn't
peace,
go.
Paw Sox.
Yeah, I tried to wear my Paw Sox hat today, but I need a haircut and it's a little tight. So on the next, I've got a haircut scheduled between now and the next one. So maybe on the next one I'll have it on. But I would like to see the minor league affiliates, but not being anywhere close to them like you are. You're sitting
Yep.
across the country. It's hard to sometimes keep up with AAA, but Chad Tracy is a phenomenal manager, and every indication is that all of the people who come through AAA absolutely love him. And so if Cora moves up, I think that Tracy at the big league level makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you said, sooner or later he's going somewhere at the major league level. So it would
Yeah,
be a shame if we didn't find a way to keep him in the organization. But obviously, hats off to him if he has that opportunity. It's well deserved wherever that ends up
absolutely.
being.
Yeah,
So just a great guy.
yeah. Well, Caleb, do you have any pieces that you're currently working on? I know you touched on one. So how we usually wrap it up is we'll kind of talk about what's coming down the pipeline from us, and then we'll send it on out of here.
Yeah, for sure. I have kind of a mix. Like you said, Maddie's out of town. She's been our week in review person for
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks now, and so I've been kind of covering for her. And my week in review kind of full disclosure, I started another new job and worked back-to-back 15-hour shifts over the weekend, so I'm slightly delayed on the week in review plus 1 day.
Yeah.
But was kind of just thinking about how this Red Sox team, especially in the absence of Devers, is kind of lacking identity right now.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
there's no other than Crochet, who obviously is doing everything he can. There's not really a team or a player on the team that's having a signature season, right? Like last year was the Jaron Duran season and the Tanner Houck season, and then
Yeah.
they really left their mark on it. Other than, it was Bregman until he missed a month, and we'll see what he can give when he gets back. But
Yeah.
the Red Sox are kind of lacking that, like, oh, this is the Red Sox, right? It was
Mhm.
it was Devers. And, I kind of, again, with the deadline, I'm really interested to see of what they do and who they bring in and
Mhm.
kind of who this becomes over the next season. Like, who are we going to the ballpark in 2026 excited to see that they brought in? Because this year it was
Yeah.
Crochet, and that's been
Yeah.
awesome. But, who are we going to be as a team, and who's going to kind of step up and take that role of this is my Red Sox team. And hey, if it's Rob
Mhm.
Refsnyder, let's freaking go, man. Like, I'd love to see him be our dude. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where we go, particularly at the deadline. And I would really appreciate seeing a move get done within the first week of July. Kind of, the Padres jumped the gun last year with Arias
Yeah.
in, I believe, the end of May, which was wild. But
Yeah. It was
I'd love
very
to
early.
see them be the ones that knock the domino over and get the guy that
Yeah.
maybe people weren't expecting or that we haven't even thought of, that we're
Yeah.
like, okay, I like how this feels now.
Mhm.
So
Like,
who
oh,
who
that's a
are
move
we,
that
and
makes
let's
sense
go
that
get
none
him.
of us saw coming. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
I
where
would
I'm
like
going.
I would
But
like for us to play in the trade market next week.
yeah,
Later this week. Like we
yeah,
are
the
we are
sooner it can
knocking
make
down
an
the doors of
impact,
July.
the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. I'm looking forward to reading that week in review when it comes out. I think right now the only thing I have in the pipeline is I've got the Major League Hitter of the Month for June that'll go up here in the next couple days, and I'm sure I'll find some other things to talk about. Um, I do want to
I have no
give
doubt.
a quick I do want to give a quick shout out, and I just noticed this literally right before we started recording. Um, I was clicking around on the site, and there are some people who have started, and I don't have all the screen names in front of me, so I'm not gonna try to sit here and shout everybody out. But there are people that I'm noticing on every article are starting to really drive discussion and are talking opinions, and I absolutely love to see that. Like, Talk Sox is still we're still kind of getting our feet under us, and and it's so awesome to see these people, guys, girls, whoever, on the comments on the articles that are interacting with us as writers and interacting with each other. And I think it's so awesome, and I've seen a really big uptick in that over the past couple of weeks, and I just think that's great. And so for those of you who are listening and you're part of that group, like, we really, really appreciate it. Please keep doing it. I, speaking personally, like, when I'm teaching, I don't often have a lot of time to like sit and comment back and forth during the school year. But now that I'm here in the summer, like, I do have some free time to sit and chat over comments and stuff. And so it's been really cool, like, getting to talk to a lot of these people, and seeing people that disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. And I encourage it. And I love to have that conversation too. So please keep interacting. Like, it's so awesome. We really do enjoy it.
And
And
it pushes us to be better. So if you
yeah,
disagree, let us know why we're wrong, and yeah, let's have a discussion. Some of these dudes on here, I feel like could be in the front office themselves. Like, they know their stuff
absolutely.
inside and out.
And there's been people who've made comments on stuff that, like, man, I didn't see it from that way, and it's inspired me to write a completely different angle on something that I was already working on. And so I think that's so awesome, and I love to see it, and I hope that it continues, because I know that, like, I really enjoy doing this, and just that engagement with all of you is fantastic. And we want it here on the podcast too, and that's why I always kind of end it with saying, like, hey, like, talk to us, comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, I check those too, and we love to hear from you. And if we get enough play on it, I think kind of the hope is to do like a mailbag kind of thing at some point this season, and we'll see where it goes from there. But Caleb, thank you once again for stepping up this week. And it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed talking to you. You've got some awesome ideas and some great opinions, and I definitely hope to have you back on the pod sometime soon.
Yeah, anytime you like, I'm happy to. This has been a blast. So thanks for having me, and thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you guys for listening to the Talk Stocks podcast, and we will catch you next week.